Hi, this is Chuck Colson with this week's 2-Minute Warning. For 2 decades, I've been advocating a biblical worldview. To be true to our calling, we've got to see all of life under the lordship of Christ. That we often don't is the reason the church seems so powerless. Let me give you one example. The assistant pastor of a very prominent church was invited to speak to some local Christian business people. He began by saying, "I'm a pastor and I deal with theological questions, and I've never had any experience in the workplace, so I'm not sure there's much I can tell you." Well, I can just say it's a good thing I wasn't there. I would have run up, grabbed the microphone, told him to sit down, and I would have started talking. Because no experience in the workplace? What Bible has this man been reading? Doesn't this minister of the gospel know that Christian theology has much to say about our work? Doesn't he understand that human beings are made in the image of God with a desire to be creative and productive, and that work is a sign not of the fall, but of God's blessing? Doesn't he realize people spend half of their waking hours working, and we say we don't want to pay any attention to work? Remember that after creating the world, the first thing God did was to give us work to do. Cultivating the soil, naming the animals. Work is not some curse. That's what the Greeks thought, and they had slaves. But Christianity contradicted all of that. Work is something we are all called to do, using our gifts to God's glory. Vocations were considered the first act of discipleship during the Reformation. Remember that wonderful scene in the movie Chariots of Fire when Eric Liddell, Olympic runner, tells his sister that when he runs, that is when he works, he feels God's pleasure. You see, through work we produce goods and services that people need, like the Christian businessmen in the Middle Ages who invented eyeglasses in order to help people with poor eyesight work more productively. And their work made God's world a better place. Starting a business enables us to provide meaningful work to our employees. It allows us to invest back into our communities. We become stewards for the Lord. The great Protestant reformer Martin Luther rediscovered the biblical truth. It doesn't matter, he said, whether you are preaching the gospel or scrubbing the floors, so long as it's done for the glory of God. And this concept gave birth to the Protestant work ethic which built American civilization. Now, the secular world today sadly doesn't get this. Many view the goal of business as making as much money as you can. False. It's stewardship. And too many people view work as a necessary evil, as something you've got to get done as soon as possible so you can really start living. How tragically sad. But for a pastor to say, "I don't have anything to say to the business people," well, that tells me that we're losing sight of work as a calling, as a true vocation. Dorothy Sayers called such preaching scandalous. It tells me we are woefully ignorant about the biblical worldview. I want you to come to the colsoncenter.org. Today, you'll find there plenty of resources on the value and meaning of work from a Christian perspective. I also want you to view a trailer of a marvelous 6-part video teaching series we're producing about ethics in the workplace. The series will be released later this fall, and it contains wonderful teaching on work and the stewardship of business. I'm Chuck Colson. That's this week's 2-Minute Warning.